Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's lesson. This is lesson 11 of the training program, and this is going to be the last but one video or recording for this training program. And in today's lesson, we'll be looking at the term branding, and then we'll take a look at some types of branding where we have the individual, and then we'll look at church branding as well. And then we'll look at how you can use branding when it comes to your business, or how you can brand your business. And then we'll look at other types of branding. So we'll start with what branding is all about. We'll look at individual or personal branding, and then we'll look at church branding, we'll look at business, and then we'll look at others. Okay. Okay, so what is branding? So when we talk about branding, one of the very first things that comes to people's mind is logo, and maybe having your own type of colors, or maybe having let's say a type of dress, or let's say you have some souvenirs that have your logos on them. So that's what some people understand branding to be, or that's how people understand branding. But branding is more than just a logo. It's not all about having a logo, but it's more than that. So it's more like an identity. So let me write it here. So branding is more like an identity, giving an identity to something, whether your person or your business, or let's say your church. So it's basically giving an identity to yourself. It could be your church, and it could also be your business or product. So that's the basic idea of what branding is. And one of the things that help you identify a brand is a logo. So the logo is more like the face or the mark, or that signifies the identity, or let's say the whole face of the brand, which is what helps you identify what the brand is. Let's delve deeper into the meaning of branding so you get it, so you understand it better. Okay, so like I said earlier, branding is more than just a logo, and it's more of a complete identity and experience a person, business, or organization presents to the world. So you can write that definition down. Branding is a complete identity or experience a person or business or organization presents to the world. So, whatever identity or whatever experience you present to the world, or you present to a particular set of audience or individuals, is what we call, or what we term as branding. So it shapes how people perceive, remember, and trust you. So branding shapes how people see you, how they would remember you, or if they can trust you or not, if they can trust your business or not, or your product or not. So that's what branding is basically about. And then the four key areas, like I said, we are going to look into are personal branding. Let me put that down. So we're going to look at personal branding first. Okay, so personal branding. So personal branding is how an individual presents themselves to the public, especially online. So these days, it's not like the old times where we didn't have access to technology and the internet, where if you wanted to have like a sort of personal brand, it's basically, like, let's say if like you really wanted to grow your personal or have a personal brand, like in the old days, it would be if, let's say, you do something remarkable, or you do or you discover something remarkable, or let's say you found that, let's say you founded a particular brand or sort of technology. That's one way people used to build their personal branding or have a personal brand. So you need to do something out of the ordinary in those days to be able to come out or to be able to have people notice you. And then once they notice you and then they acknowledge whatever you've done, whatever thing you've come out with, whatever you've discovered, whatever you've invented, that would be where you'd begin to have a personal brand. Because when that happens, your name begins to go out there. People hear your name, people keep your name in memory when your name is mentioned somewhere, and a lot of people can tell that, oh, it's this guy, and because he did this and that, I remember his name. So yeah, that's basically how people had a personal brand or built a personal brand. Before, you didn't have the internet to create profiles and then start influencing or start creating content for people to notice you. But in those days, you needed to do something remarkable. But now, if you let's say the ordinary, but in a special way, it's very, very highly possible to get noticed than before. Okay, so personal branding is how an individual presents themselves to the public, especially online. So you're going to go with the online definition since we are in the modern era. Okay, so personal branding is built around people's skills. It's built around people's skills, values, personality, and then reputation. So most of what I talked about earlier is mostly centered around reputation, doing something remarkable and having your name recognized. So that's basically one part of the definition I was talking about earlier: reputation, and also skills, and then values, and also personality. Okay. So with the skills, there are multiple type of skills out there. One basic skill could be what we've been studying, graphic design. Graphic design is a skill. And even with graphic design, like I said in one of the lessons where I said graphic design is a broad thing or a broad career where we have different niches underneath. And also we have music, which is what a lot of people, what a lot of celebrities have gone into to make a name for themselves. And then we have dancing, we have public speaking. Public speaking is also a skill. And then we have people who play instruments, people who make beats, and all of that. So all those are skills which can also be foundational ground roots for building your personal brand. And also there are also values. So mostly it's personal branding mostly centers around these three: skills, reputation, and then personality. So you can have the skills, and also there are people who are highly noticeable, people who are very popular due to the kind of personality they have, although they might have the skills. So let's say you are into football per se, and let's say you're not the only person who plays football, you're not the only person with interest in football. There are other people who also play football out there, but there seems to be like one person outshining the other. So although the two of them have the same set of skills, but one has a, let's say, better personality as compared to the other. So personality, reputation, and skills are all the ground roots for having a personal brand or for building your own personal brand. So you don't just get up out there and then say, oh, just because I have the skills and just because I have the skills, I can build a good brand or a solid personal brand, but you must also have the reputation where people would notice you, people would know you, and also you should have the personality. So it's not like you're a footballer, so you play like the way most people play, but you have a certain personality, something different that adds to it. You have to say, I'm a musician, you also sing. You also sing maybe country music, and there are a lot of country musicians out there. But you alone having or building a certain unique personality makes you different. And just having that personality will begin to build a reputation for yourself. And also, once you have the reputation, you should also know that once you go up or anything that goes up can't come down. So once you have the reputation, you should also focus on having a set of values that guide your personality or your personal brand, so you don't end up starting something and then starting your own brand and building it and then end up failing at the end. So you need to put all these four into consideration. You might have the set of skills, music. You must also build upon the reputation, build upon your reputation, and then have a personality that is different from others. So with a personality, you also need to be yourself. You don't have to try and fake it or try to be like somebody else. Let's say you might be looking up to some popular musician or some popular artist. You shouldn't try and copy them, but you should also have your own personality, your own one thing that makes you different. So it won't be like, oh, if I see this, I'm seeing this guy, and it's like you're copying everything the person does, the way the person dresses, the way the person sings to perform and all that. You must have your own personality attached to that brand, and also you must have a set of values. Okay, so now let's look at some of the key elements when it comes to personal branding. Okay, so key elements. So number one, we have consistent visual identity. So consistent visual identity is where we have, let me write that down. So we have one, consistent visual identity. So consistent visual identity is where you have your profile pictures or profile photos, and then you have your particular color choices. You have certain type of fonts you use. So all these across all platforms. Okay, so number one, consistent visual identity. So with consistent visual identity, what we are basically talking about is, let's say you have multiple accounts on different types of social media, let's say Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok, and others. So what this basically means is that if you're trying to build your personal brand, you should have some sort of consistency across all your platforms, whether WhatsApp or Instagram. So let's say you have one particular profile photo where, let's say on Instagram, your profile photo is a picture of you, or let's say a profile shot of you, or a photo shoot of yourself, and then on your WhatsApp you have a different photo of, or let's maybe the WhatsApp account you have is more like your personal WhatsApp account, but let's say you have a WhatsApp business account where it's also a subsection or a branch of your personal brand. So let's say you have that profile picture on Instagram, you should also have the same profile picture on your WhatsApp and also on your Twitter accounts and TikTok. So let's say that one particular profile photo would run through each and every one of your profile accounts or your profiles or accounts on different platforms. So what this helps to do is, let's say someone follows you on Instagram, and that person has, let's say, an account on Facebook, and let's say they don't know they just or recently started following you on Instagram. So when they go on Facebook and then they see that same profile photo, dude, check out that profile and then realize that it belongs to the same person, and then also follow you on that platform. So now you have them, your audience from one platform, also connecting with you on a different platform or a separate platform. But let's say you have I forgot to include one thing to it, so let me include this username. Okay, so this is also part of building a consistent visual identity. So let's say your audience from Instagram see a particular profile photo that they recognize you by, and on a different platform like Instagram, you have the same profile photo and also the same username. Dude, feel like, oh, maybe I've seen this person, or I'm following this person on this platform, and I didn't know that they have another platform here. Let me just follow them here so I can see more of their content here too. So you end up migrating some of your audience, or let's say your audience, from one platform like Facebook onto another platform like TikTok. So you don't have to constantly keep telling people that, oh, follow me on Instagram or follow me on Facebook or follow me here, follow me here. Although you can do that, that will also help build your brand. But just having a consistent profile photo or username would help people recognize you better on other platforms, and also which will help boost your audience or help your audience connect with you on other platforms as well. And also colors is also a good way of building that consistency. So let's say on Instagram we have what we call you have your posts, and then let's say on Instagram the kinds of posts you have let's say the color green dominating. So let's say most of your posts have this color dominating in them, and then you go on Facebook, and then on Facebook you have a different color running through, which is red. That doesn't build consistency. So you need to have the same or similar color running throughout your other platforms so people would easily recognize you, and which also help build your audience. Okay, so now let's look at the next key elements when it comes to personal branding. Okay. Number 2, we have a clear niche or area of expertise. Okay, so this is the second key element when it comes to personal branding. Okay, so now let's look at what the term niche is. So niche is basically specializing in a specific area of expertise or in a specific area of study. So why is this also another key element in personal branding? So let's say you are into the let's say you're into content creation, and let's say you want to start content creation. Okay, so one thing you notice in people who are into content creation is that let's say most of the successful ones have a clear niche or have a certain area of expertise. So you have people where they make content centered around food or restaurants, and then we have people who make comedy or skits, and then you have people who maybe do sports. So all these content creators have a particular area that they specialized in, and they found that, let's say they found that area to be their area of expertise, so they focus on only that. But when you are building a personal brand and you decide to cover everything, or you decide to make content on everything, you wouldn't reach the amount of audience or the kind of audience you're looking for. So it would be like, oh, today I'm doing video on this, today I'm doing a video on this. And maybe some people, maybe they are interested in food content, but they are not really into sports, or they are not really into comedy and stuff. So once they start following you because of a certain video you made on food, and then later they realize that you've made another video, but this time it's totally different from the food content you are making, and now you're making comedy, next time you're making sports, they would see some sort of inconsistency in your content, and then they might end up unfollowing you, or they might end up not following you anymore. So you need to have a particular niche or area of expertise where you can focus on, and then bring out the best you possibly can. And also it applies in, let's say, graphic design. So you don't have to, you're building a personal brand as a graphic designer. You don't have to generalize in everything that, oh, I do flyers, I do posters, I do this and this and that. In most places, they don't really regard those things. They mostly want you to do everything. But when it comes to the professional space or the personal branding phase or space, it's highly expected that you have a particular area of expertise where you focus on. Even it's the same thing applies to the health sector, where we have doctors who are focused on maybe the brain, and then we have people who are also focused on women, and people who are also focused on people with disabilities and all that. So all these people have found a particular area of expertise where they focused on and mastered. So you realize that most of these people who are specialized in these different health problems are mostly people who earn a lot, or they gain a lot of money and have a higher reputation because they found something they are good at, and they've paid attention to that thing. They've paid attention to mastering that thing and learning more about that thing, and finding out ways and means to come out with different techniques or method in doing that thing or performing that thing. So they've specialized in it, and now they become a master at it. Yeah, so that's basically it for the number 2. Okay, so now let's go to number 3, and we are still on personal branding. Okay, so the second key element under personal branding, the third key elements under personal branding we have is voice and tone. So the voice and tone. So what does this mean? So the voice and tone here basically means how you write, let's say, your captions on your social media post, or how you speak in videos, or how you respond to comments under your post. So we have people where, if, like, let's say, follow a certain personality online, you realize that they have a certain way they type their captions, or a certain way they write their captions, and also they have a certain way they speak inside their videos. So when you hear someone try and imitate what they usually say in their videos, you will be able to recognize that personality, that, oh, it's this person they are copying from, or hey, he sounds more like this person I've seen online. So yeah, if that means the person has built a voice and a tone for their personal brand that makes it easily recognizable, and people will be able to notice, even if it's not coming from their mouths, or even if they see it like online or social media, or let's say different platforms. So yeah, that's basically what the voice and tone is all about. So if you are building your personal brand, you need to make sure that you have a unique voice and tone in writing your captions, in the way you speak in your videos, in the way you respond to comments, and also in the way you talk to your audience or approach your audience. That's also important. And also, I think the last one here is consistency, which I've talked about earlier. Building consistency across Instagram, YouTube, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and others. So if you have a profile or an account on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, so you need to be consistent in all of them. That's if you have like multiple social media accounts. So it's not like you're posting on just one platform. So you post like 5 times a week on Facebook, and then on Instagram you barely post. On WhatsApp you post, like, you make like 2 posts a day, and then you barely post on Facebook and Instagram. That wouldn't show any sense of consistency in them. So you need to be consistent. Although all these platforms have different kinds of way their post work, especially with X, where you have text, you can have only text only post, and then Instagram you have more of images and reels. WhatsApp you have more of the stories and status and stuff, and Facebook where you also have the Facebook reels and the Facebook post, and YouTube where you have long form content. But I think even with YouTube now you can also post images and stuff, like, let's say, a normal ordinary post. So you need to be consistent in all your social media platforms. And if you realize that you can't like focus on multiple platforms at once, you need to start with one platform first and build engagement over there, build your fame over there, build your recognition over there. And then once you realize that you've grown a certain number of audience, you can now try moving to another platform. Not like you're migrating to that new platform, but you're adding to it. So now when you create a new platform, people from your previous platform who have accounts on the new platform can move on there and follow you there as well, since you already have your audience or you already have your engagements. So the next thing we're going to look at is business branding. Okay, business branding. So what is business branding? So business branding is basically the identity built around a company or a product. So this communicate what the business does, who they serve, and why it matters. So key elements in business branding. So with the business branding, it's more technical, since this time it's not about you, but it's more about a company or a product. So let me list down some of the key elements, and then I'll talk briefly about them, and then we'll look at a few design considerations, and then we'll talk about church branding, and then we'll talk about a few others, and then we'll conclude today's lesson. Okay, so we have the key elements. Okay, here are the key elements. So first one we have is logo and visual identity system. The next one we have is brand colors, typography, and image or imagery style. And then third, which I've already spoke about in the previous one, is brand voice. And then we have mission, vision, and core values. And then maybe the last but not the least, target audience. Okay, so these are the basic or the main key elements when it comes to business branding. So like I said earlier, business branding is the identity built around a company or a product, and it communicates what the business does, who it serves, and why it matters. And then now we're looking at the key elements when it comes to business branding. Okay, so logo and visual identity system. So if once you decide to build a business brand, you see a business brand is more like a personal brand. So with business brand, it's more like you're building the identity around a certain product or a company, or let's say a community, or no, not a community, yeah, a company or a product or organization. So what's the first thing that comes in mind when you're building a business brand? So the first thing that comes to mind is having a name for your business brand or having a name for your brand. So this time, since it's a business, some people decide to use their personal names because some have the belief that a business brand is more like or is the same thing as a personal brand. Well, they are similar, or let's say they are one in the same. It's something like that. They are similar. So a personal brand can be a business brand, but not all business brands are personal brands. I think that explains it better. Okay, so when it comes to a business brand, first thing you need to have is a name, a particular name that would help people identify your business. So it's not, although we have the logo and then the visual identity system, sorry, although we have the logo and visual identity system, you need to have a name that represents your brand. So we have a brand like Nike or Apple or Spotify, or let's say, let's come to Ghana where we have Casa Preco, we have Piva, we have CWI, we have Indomie, we have Cowbell. So let's take Cowbell for instance. So a Cowbell, they have the business name Cowbell, which identifies their brand. So when you mention Cowbell somewhere, or let's say for instance Fun Milk, when you mention Fun Milk somewhere, people are able to recognize it easily because they've built their business around that brand name. So now you have the brand name Fun Milk. The next thing is the logo, creating a logo to add more identity to our brand. So we have the name already, but the name isn't enough. Just mentioning the name out there that somebody can easily get a product and then just put that name on it, that they can get, let's say you do Sobolo, and then do take a piece of paper, paste it on it, and then write with a marker and Farm Milk. So that means that the original Farm Milk doesn't have an identity that's going to differentiate it from the copy or the other things that people are also doing. So they need a logo. So with Farm Milk, their logo is basically like a logo mark of a fan. So as the name says, fan and then milk. So they have the logo mark with a fan symbol. So that logo adds identity to their brand. So now when you see you see one product with the name Fan Milk and then that fan logo mark on it, and then another product with just the text Fan Milk written on it, you know that, this is the actual brand since it has a logo or visual identity attached to it, and then this one doesn't have anything attached to it. And also the brand colors. So Fan Milk has a lot of brand colors, but mostly it's blue and white. So once you identify these brand colors, you realize that so they have this kind of colors attached to their products or attached to their business. Let's say their flyers and all that. Let's say for instance, you can even identify most of the second key elements when it comes to a brand like MTN. So once you see a flyer with yellow all around it, and then their fonts which they have, and then their imagery style, you realize that this is MTN. If when you see a poster from far away and you see the yellow and everything else, you can identify that this flyer is from MTN. Maybe it might not be from MTN, but just seeing it from a distance will give you an idea that this could be from MTN, since they've added that key elements to their business brand. So it has helped their business or their brand gain some sort of recognition out there. So that's also an important thing to add when it comes to building a brand for your business. You need to have your own particular set of brand colors and also a particular typography. So when it comes to this one thing you realize in most startup businesses is, let's say they have a particular font style they used for their logo and let's say their brand identity manual, and then they end up using different fonts for their flyers, posters, and all that. But that's not the right thing to do when building a business brand. So you need to be consistent. Let's say you have a designer who made your brand identity manual for you. So that manual, you should use it, or you should give it to the new designer that you're working with to also look at it and know that, oh, this is the fonts we use. Or you can also communicate it to the designer that, oh, this is the fonts we used for building our brand identity. So use that same fonts to design their flyers and all that. So you have consistency running throughout, so it doesn't keep looking different from, let's say one doesn't look different from the next and from the next. So, or have a sort of consistency running through them, which should make it easy to recognize. And also your target audience. So target audience is basically the people that you want your business to or your brand to communicate to. So for example, you make children's product or baby product. So with that one, your target audience is parents or mothers who have babies at home or who take care of babies. So, and also their target audience is also babies as well. So you're building your brand around mothers or fathers, or let's say single fathers who take care of their babies. So that's what you're building your brand about, like around. So you make sure that you identify your target audience and then build your brand around them. So when your target audience sees the kind of, let's say, product you make or the kind of brand colors and identity you have, it to attract them to your business. You can't have, let's say, a baby product like this and your target audience is babies and mothers, and then the colors you are using is red, which mostly signifies danger. So you need a cool color like blue or cyan to easily gain attraction from them. So you need to pay attention to your target audience, the people you want to reach out to, not just having the logo and all that. Okay, so let's look at a few design considerations when building a business brand. So the first one is to research competitors before designing. So before you design or before you have your designer create whatever brand identity you've tasked him to do, they need to do, or you guys need to do some research on, let's say, competitors out there. So let's say you want to make a soft drink or a carbonated drink. You look at competitors like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, look at how they created their brand, the kind of colors they use, how they attract their target audience, how they advertise their product. So you take a look at all of that when building your business brand. And also you need to ensure that the brand identity works across all touch points. So it shouldn't just work when it comes to websites and then you try making a package design from the same brand identity and it looks off. So your brand identity should work across all touch points. So whether social media, flyers, websites, or packaging or signages, that brand identity, that set of color typography and all that should be able to run through all of them. And then you should build a brand guideline document so consistency is maintained even as the team grows. So like I said earlier, you need to have a brand identity guide or a brand guide that helps you let's say know how many colors or the kind of colors you use in the brand, the kind of typography you use, like I said earlier, and how your logo should be used so that when you end up having new recruits, they have a copy of this manual or this guide and they know how things work around that brand or how to work around the brand so they don't end up doing something different. Okay, let's move on to the next thing, which is church branding. Okay, church branding. So church branding is unique because it's blend spiritual identity with visual communication. So it should feel welcoming, trustworthy, and reflective of the church's values and mission. So church identity is church branding is basically giving your community, or let's say your Christian community or group, an identity. So it's basically like business, but with business you're looking at gaining profits and all that, but with church branding you're basically trying to put an identity on your community or on the church you've founded or built up, so it'll make your church or community different from others. Okay, so now let's look at the key elements here and then we'll conclude today's lesson. So key elements: 1, like always, we have the logo. Then 2, consistent colors. 3, consistent typography. And then we have consistent templates. So with the consistent templates, it could be around sermon notes. It could be testimony flyers, and this could also be event promotions, and also maybe countdowns. And then we have the last key elements, which is a recognizable style for video content. Okay, so when it comes to church brands, or let's say church branding, one of the first things you need to have is a logo, which is highly important. And also, before even having the logo, like I said in the business branding, you need to have a name. So you need to have a particular unique name for your church. So the name could come by revelation or maybe through discussion with your team on the kind of name you want to use. And then once you have the name, then you need to build upon the logo. The logo should be unique and it should be easily recognizable. So one thing I've realized when it comes to building church brands is that I think in the old days, people weren't really knowledgeable about flyers and all that. So you see some logos and they are more of like, they are not minimal, they are more of maximal. So you have a logo having different symbols of them. You have an eagle, a globe, a cross, fire, all of them in just one logo. But in modern branding, you realize that most outstanding churches out there, especially on social media, have a sort of minimal logo style. You realize that their logos are more minimal and mostly they use just one color for their logos. It could be the normal black and white, or you could have red or orange or purple. It basically depends on you, your team, and your congregation, whether it's a youth ministry or it's for everyone from children to people who are of age. So yeah, that's basically it. That's basically one of the things you should consider when creating a logo for your church or your church community. And then we have the consistent colors. So all these are explainable since I explained them in the business branding. You can also apply that same knowledge over here, especially when it comes to the consistent colors and then having consistent typography or consistent templates. So the templates here are basically the type of flyers you produce or that are produced for your church. So you don't have different styles of flyers in your social media posts, but you have a particular style that you go with when it comes to quotes, sermon notes, event promotions, countdown. You have a particular style that goes with them, so people can easily identify you or gain your church brand that recognition. And then the last one, which I listed here, is a recognizable style for video content. So when you are making your videos or having a live stream, you should have some sort of recognizable style. Let's say you have the scripture coming at the bottom, like a lower third, and then maybe you have the church logo at the top right, and then the sermon title at the top left. And let's say you have a concluding or an end video or outro that you have for your church, so it runs through all your videos so people can easily recognize it. Okay, now some design considerations when it comes to church branding. So number 1, we have balance, creativity with reverence and clarity. Then number 2, we have keep designs easy to reproduce. So you don't have to, so you do this so you don't have to create designs from scratch. Let's say every new program comes, now you have to create a whole new design from scratch. But since you have an easier style of creating or producing your designs, you can just pick one old design you made and then just shuffle things around and then come up with a new concept without having to start everything from scratch. And then last but not the least, we have make sure branding feels consistent. So you have to make sure your branding feel consistent. So whether it is a Sunday service flyer or leadership training slide. So whether it's a Sunday service flyer or let's say a presentation or PowerPoint, you need to make sure that the branding feels consistent throughout everything. So these are the three design considerations you need to have in mind when building your church brand or creating a visual identity for your church brand. A consistent set of templates for sermon notes, prayer points, and countdown graphics that all share the same color scheme, fonts, and logo placement so members instantly recognize content from the ministry. Okay, so let's look at some other types of branding and then we'll end the lesson for today. Okay, so branding is not just limited to personal or business or church context. There are also different kinds of branding out there. Although the main types of branding we have are the business type of branding and then the personal type of branding, and all these other branding forms also, or let's say they form parts of these two that I talked about earlier. So we have the product branding. So this could be under business branding. So product branding is basically the identity built around a single product rather than an entire company. So it could be a package design, it could be product logos and so on. And then we have non-profits or NGO branding. So this one is focused on trust, transparency, and mission impact. So visuals often emphasize community and cause. And then we also have event branding. So I think this one isn't really under personal and business branding. This one is more like, let's say you have a event coming up where they create a whole brand identity for that particular event. So it's not like for the business organizing or the company organizing the events, but just that particular event. When you look at the December events that come out, you realize that each of these programs have their own temporary branding or identity that comes with it. So they are basically the temporary identity created for a specific event. So it could be a conference, a concert, a wedding. So let's say, for example, a good example is the wedding. So when people are about to get married, they have a new logo where it has the initials of both the husband to be and the wife to be, and then they have their own colors that they choose. And yeah, so that's basically an example of event branding. So it's just a temporary identity created for a specific event. And then we have educational branding. So this is mostly used by schools, training programs, or course creators to build recognition and trust. So every school has their crest or a logo that identifies them. So they have the patterns they use for their uniforms, the kinds of the anthem they use, their values and their mission statements and all that. So that's also what we classify as the educational branding. Okay, so the key takeaway here is that no matter the type of branding, the goal is the same. So you need to have consistency that builds trust, and the trust should build recognition. So consistency that builds trust, and that trust should build recognition. And also, as creatives or as designers, our job is to translate a person's or organization's identity into visuals and messaging that people can instantly recognize and connect with. Okay, so I think I'll bring this lesson to a close, and thank you guys for watching. I hope you made some notes. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can leave them in the comment section, or you can text me through the WhatsApp platform and I'll attend to you from there.